Good morning, Internet. We are going to test some of the pigments that we've made. We made 6 pigments. We're scheduled to do about 4 more pigments, but in the interim, when I need that color, I'm going to use Daniel Smith. And we do though have some reds, yellows, and blues coming. The pigments have been ordered. Anyway, so I'm going to test. I have a list of about 10 types of paper that we're going to test. Actually, about 15. And the test includes on the papers to use the pigments. We're going to see how they work, and we're going to use Winsor Newton, as you can see right here. Then we're a block 12 by 16, and in the future I'm going to use fluid 140 pounds cold press block 12 by 16, and after that we're going to use Bockingford, and it's a variety of weights. I'll use GSM, but GSM extra rough, and GSM cold press, GSM hot press, GSM 300 hot press, and then GSM 425 cold press, GSM 425 extra rough, and GSM 535 cold press. And the conversions for all of those are like the first group was 140 pound, and then 200 pound, and 250 pound. So that's and it seems that those weights, you know, the 425 and the 535, they seem to be unique to Bockingford. We're also going to test several 90-pound papers. Saks is an American paper, 90 pounds, 18 by 24. And B is also B Company is also an American company, and it's going to be a 90 pound 11 by 15. And then we are going to go on to Canson Montval, a French paper, cold press, 140 pounds. I have it on a roll. I'm not sure what paper size I'm going to use. And then after that, we're going to test Fabriano Studios 90 pound 11 by 14. I kind of use that for utility and for testing pigments, but not for actually doing a painting from those pigments. Then we have Arches 140 pound block 12 by 16, super cold press, super paper. Obviously it's perhaps number 1 above Winsor Newton in my book, but you know, that's just me. And then a German paper, Hanna Mühle. My German is not what it should be, considering I lived in Germany for 2 years. 140 pound block 12 by 16, and that's a pretty good paper, but it's not, and we'll discuss it compared to other papers. Then we have and lastly we have Strathmore, an American paper, 140 pound cold press, 18 by 24. So those are some paintings that we're going to be doing with these pigments, with these paints. And here is the first one is going to be here, the watercolor block from Winsor Newton 12 by 16, and it is a rough, and this is absolutely, in my book, at least at this point, and we'll do some more testing, a number one. I have an old painting that I'm never finished, and for good reason, but anyway, and I'm going to take it off the block. Don't I have a clean knife anywhere? Okay, here's one. Actually, I probably could tear it, but and unlike so many others, Winsor Newton has the block so that you can take it from a corner, the upper right hand corner, or depending upon what your orientation was, but it's one corner, and I think I can just peel this off without the knife. So there we go, and I'm just going to put that off to the side. And we're going to do something new. I know, I don't want to use that as any kind of inspiration. Yeah, so let's do that. What I think I'll do then, yeah, I think I'm going to put a border on there, and boy, I need to go get it, the tape. I'm going to use a frog tape from Home Depot, but I'm going to use the yellow frog tape, which is not that, that's my utility tape, and then here is the yellow frog tape, and then here is the here's the heavier frog tape with heavier adhesive on it, and so I wouldn't recommend putting it on our delicate watercolors. So I'm going to make a border here and tape off the edges because I don't want the edges wet. When I have it on a block, I want to preserve it, so I'm going to tape off the edges. And also I have an ulterior reason for doing that, is that I typically like to use 11 by 14. Here's an example of an 11 by 14, and we're going to do a 12 by 16, but we're going to tape it off to maybe get it back down to an Imperial size. By and large, our testing is going to be on Imperial size, and because it's not terribly expensive, and I can frame it with my pre-cut mat boards. Yeah, may not be so good, but when I put it in a mat, no one will see the limits of the painting anyway. Okay, that ought to protect that edge. And then lastly, the other side here. And okay, so now I've got a watercolor black, but I am going to keep a nice border on it. And first thing I'm going to do is get a brush that's nice and clean, and yeah, okay. And first thing I want to do is put on washes. So I'm going to put quite a bit of on, and okay, it's soaked to the edges, and let's go. I'm going to use my Ultramarine for my skies, and this is not French Ultramarine. And this is just beautiful paper, especially by comparison to American papers. At least, I don't know, when the U.S. is going to start making a good paper. So there's my sky. We'll let that dry a little. Let's go to the beach. Oh, let me wash my brush here. I love that water pick brush. It really cleans brushes. And well, here I've got my clouds. And I guess that brush could have been drier. That's our ultramarine blue on the very best paper, I think. And there's my cloud, one cloud. Now I'm going to do some lifting with my mop brush. Well, might want to let's see. I'm going to add some umber. Whoa. That's like syrup. Still like syrup. I think this is the batch where I added honey so that I could draw ants if I wanted. And that's still... This is a heavy pigment. Heavy. Just a tad. Now, my paper toweling has quite a bit of texture to it, but fortunately it doesn't show up on the rough Winsor Newton. And we laid it on thick enough, I think. I believe, though, that I want a little bit lighter. So as you can see, I'm lifting with a paper towel, a damp paper towel. And so that's more like what I want. Yeah, anyway, well, those pigments are rather odd on the rough. I perhaps could augment this. Let's use a yellow, which I have not. This is a Daniel Smith, and it's a little bit of yellow that I'm going to put in the horizon. Let's clean my brush off. Putting yellow on my horizon. And all the way down. And why do I have a yellow horizon? Because I want to show a little bit of a reflection there, and going to put in my light source. I'm going to do that. Yeah, with my chamois. And let's go and do it right here. And as you can see, I'm trying to lift. Let me put a little more water in here. And see if I can't lift the Hasna yellow medium from there. Actually, it almost looks like I can read lettering here. This is not lifting, but so I guess we have a couple of variables there, but really this is there's a sun. I should I've washed over on the rough paper, and I wanted to lift that so it would be completely white. And is it? No, it's not. Well, this is the Daniel Smith titanium white ground, and this is not a traditional watercolor approach. I should have simply left it, but so here we've got Daniel Smith white ground. And it's basically opaque white. And that is not the effect I wanted. Boy, yeah, just using opaque and put the riggers in with opaque white or with chalk. It's not traditional or Victorian watercolor. And that is just ugly. So that is butt ugly. Oh well, let's we're basically trying to test the pigments, so we're getting off mission. And my techniques with the best paper in the world are falling short. And here's my foreground. here's my beach. And of course I'm going to have a bit of water. So let's I think that's going on wetter than I wanted. I would say my handmade ultramarine blue is not wonderful. I always want wonderful, but we're hard pressed to get it sometimes. That's a shore. This is our beach. Here's a little bit of surf action, and then our sunset. Here's the line, so let's do a very delicate line. For the horizon. And now, except for the yellow, this is all homemade pigment. Oh, and then also the Daniel Smith white ground, which probably should be put on dry instead of wet. So, but here's the Daniel Smith pigment for ground, the pigment for yellow, and my water overworking it, let the paint go where it wants to go, and I'm certainly not doing that. I'm directing its flow. And so we get a mediocre watercolor going here, and it's not a test, not a good test for the paper. It may be a good test for the pigments we created, which of course is a principal objective, is to do that. What if I accent my surf? Not happening. I'm not certain about the Daniel Smith titanium white, but then it just may be me. And this is really not a Victorian approach to watercolor. We've got some, basically a gouache for our light source, the sun, the setting sun, and it's not believable. It's terrible. So chalk this up to when I laid down that pigment on this rough paper, it stayed exactly where I put it, and so that means that even as a wash, it was too pigmented, not transparent enough, and I don't know how we can recover this painting at all. And I put washes. I didn't leave out the wash for the light source, and I wasn't able on the rough paper to pick it up. So let's see. It can't hurt. We could wait until this is dry, and then add some foreground features. But I think that's beating a dead horse. This painting is a failure. So I'm going to go into the painting graveyard. And I'm going to pick it up and toss this out. Could have done a better job. Didn't happen. I like these quiet mornings. We don't hear any traffic. It's a Friday morning. Oop. I just realized. Technically, I'm in semi-retirement, but I need to call in, and so let's put this off to the side, and I think we need to do another try. I can feel here though that on my wash, my heavy wash, it actually went through the paper, and now my block is a bit damp, at least on this one right below the other. So we're going to continue this in the test, and I'm going to call in to say I'm still here but in retirement. Good morning, Internet. We are testing the Winsor Newton paper with our pigments. I tested a bit earlier, and I may show you that video in conjunction with this video. or some edited version of that session. But now when I put a heavy wash on the top paper and then I pulled it off and I want to start again, the block is damp, and so I don't think I want to use it in that condition, but I do want to test the paper, so I'm going to take it off the block. You know, I know they say, well, you probably should stretch anything that's not on a block. And I like blocks, but since I'm not patient enough to wait for this block to dry out, I'm just going to grab a sheet from it and then start painting on it. And since I have it off the block and I don't like to tape it down, I'm going to wet both sides. So here I go. I got my badger brush. You should read Mike Chaplin's book, and he does discuss using the badger brush. So since I'm such a disciple of his, I had to get one. And this brush is really bigger than your typical mop brush, so it really gets the paper on there. Now this was the back side. We are continuing to test the paper, the Winsor Newton paper, and we just did a little test by laying out just a small amount of my ultramarine. The ultramarine is pretty potent. So that it's not coming out the way I'd like an ultramarine to work. Now I do have an ultramarine coming, a French ultramarine pigment coming, but I do have the Daniel Smith ultramarine here as well. Now we can see here that this is the ultramarine that I had made, and on the rough paper it's really just sitting there. And I think that's because I'm not using it at an angle. Let me do it. Well, we're back. We made some adjustments on our test here, and to reiterate, we put the ultramarine pigment down on the paper, and it I think the ox gall is having an effect, and it is not dispersing well, and of course it's not quite what I need. Yeah. Gotta fill up my washing machine, my brush wash machine. That's soaking it up. Okay. There, I hear it bubbling. Okay. So now my power washer is right there, And I can clean my brush. I guess some of my methods are suited for the outdoors. What if I re-wet the pigment I laid down? Well, maybe I need to lay down some more. Okay, I've laid down some more pigment. Now I think at this point it's maybe wet on damp. And I'll rework it and add more damp. More wet. And I'm just doing it with my mop brush. I don't need to get the badger out. Okay, and now I think I'm gonna do a horizon, and the horizon I think is gonna be right here, and again I'm going to put it on with my ultramarine blue, and you can see we've got action. Now I just put the board at an angle, at about 30-degree angle. I've already, the table itself is 30 degrees, 10 degrees. So I think, and then we add to it this angle, which is another 15 degrees. So now I've got probably about 25 degrees. And let's see, I think I'm now gonna add more blue sky. Blue sky above our clouds. And then below, in the distance, we have blue sky. Now we can see some interaction. And of course, I'm utilizing painting to the very edge. But right now we have a monochrome painting going on. But I think I want to use the capillary action to disperse my ultramarine blue for the ocean. And let's now try some light yellow ochre, also one of our handmade pigments. I think we're going to continue this, so I'm going to turn off the camera and we'll be back. Well, I'm back, and we've got a thoroughly wet Winsor & Newton 140-pound that came from a block. And we usually have no humidity, but I believe a storm front is moving in, and we're starting to get some humidity, and so my painting is not drying, and I'm according to the weather. Who needs Cupertino? New York. Okay, Lake Forest. 71 degrees out, and it's cloudy or partly cloudy right now, but I know that it's going to be cloudy tomorrow as well. And I'd seen a long-range forecast that says that a storm front is moving in. So I think our humidity is starting to be higher than usual. So from our last episode, or last clip, which is part of the whole show here, I am having a problem. Wait a minute. With this paint drying, and I mean, the cardinal rule is that you either keep it wet and keep working on it when it's wet, or let it completely dry. But when it's damp, like it is right here, it's really pretty much you shouldn't do it. But in any case, I'm gonna try. Well, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the light yellow ochre and I'm going to see if I can paint a shoreline in here on damp, which you should never do. So I'm committing the cardinal sin on arguably the best paper. So I get semi-hard lines, depending upon how damp, semi-hard edges on my paint. And you can see they are semi-hard, but in a way that'll work for me. However, the real story is, what will it look like? I'm going to put some burnt sienna down on our damp on damp. Now with our paint, I need to mix it. I need to get some green in there, because in fact, what I want to create is a marsh called the Back Bay. And to do that, I actually need a green, and I have not. I think we're going to have to make some green. And how are we going to make green if we don't have yellow? Well, here's some yellow, Daniel Smith yellow, and yellow and blue can make a green, but I'm on my pigments, I need to get a green. Now here you can see that's still damp, but I want to create the cliffs around the Back Bay and the marshes. So we've got marshes going here, and again I am committing the cardinal sin of painting on damp. But are those rules in abeyance when you use really good paper? There's a possibility that that's true. Now, by and large, my edge is not a sharp edge. And but it, contrary to what I just said, I'm on damp paper, and I've actually got edges. In fact, here's a place in the Back Bay that I want to create. Also, we've got some distant, from here at least, we have some distant, I gotta get this more like that. And I've got some dark edges going, but we've got some distant hills in the back. Let's reach out. Now here I have mixed Daniel Smith Hansa Yellow Medium with my handmade ultramarine blue. So we're getting a pretty nice green going on. Now one thing I do want to do is, we have some white cliffs of the Back Bay, and they happen right here. So the white cliffs of Newport. I just put my finger right here, which it's all wet. It's not taped down, and it's doing a little curling, but that's what would be expected. And how can I wash? Let's see. Come on, tell me I have a scrubber. That's okay. Not much scrubbing going on there. Put a little water on it. I'm afraid we're gonna, since I didn't block that out or mask it out, we're gonna have trouble doing the white cliffs of Newport Beach, Back Bay. So, of course, they're not following Victorian rules, or even the rules of wet on damp, but the Winsor Newton paper rough is holding up. It's a wonderful paper. I couldn't say enough about it. I want to get some distant, kind of a muddy, faint area beyond here. And actually, that's going to work. Again, damp on damp. And here we see we've got some of our we've got the Hasna yellow component of the green we made from, and it's an accident that looks wonderful. Usually not actually an accident. This is something I'd hoped for. Now here, we can't actually see out to the open sea, and this is a peninsula over here, and it's part of, it leads up to the Balboa Peninsula. Usually I should just wait until all of this dries before I do any more painting. The sky is damp. I'm going to try a rigger. Oh, I can't find a rigger. Okay. There's a rigger, and I'm going to use an umber on the cliffs. And that is really what we see. And then we see, as you can see, we are still getting hard edges, even with damp on damp. It's possible. It's a function of this paint that you can violate some of those rules if you're using good paper. A lot of ifs involved there, but there's just a small shoreline there, and so we can put that in. This was the inspiration for this is from a photograph I took while I was bicycling on the Back Bay. Got a nice bike trail there, and I've done several versions of these views. Now we're getting dry, but that's an interesting occurrence. In fact, that's what they say about wet on damp, is that you can have surprises. And yeah, I can see, on the cliffs, I'm re-wetting an area because these cliffs they've got a lot of vegetation that grows on these cliffs, so I could use some of the green that we created. I can't see it. It doesn't bother me about not being able to lift, so that's completely white on those otherwise white cliffs of Newport. No one calls them that. I invented it. But we do have a lot of cliffs, and basically it's a sandstone, and people build right onto the edge of them. So we've got a little burnt sienna, and I'm going to well, we are painting a lot of what we see up on these cliffs, which is greenery combined with some natural brown. And okay, I think we have a lot done here, but let's really, I wish I could cheat and get a nice green, but to make do with what we have here because of my testing. But I really need to make a green from a natural, and there's hundreds of pigments available from the French pigment vendor. Imagine that, selling dirt for a living, grinding it up and distributing it across the globe. Now, what I could do is re-wet. It's damp. I can re-wet these areas and try to get a reflection going. Equipment test. There's my rigger. Here's my flat scrubber. Get a 5-gallon bucket of clear water, and I'm making an effort to make it muddy again. But let's see if we re-wet it around the edge here, and well, I don't think we can beat that any Daniel Smith paint. So you would think my entire experiment here is a failure. An experiment with pigments. So I wouldn't rely, and I'm not relying on handmade pigments myself, but we've got a nice edge to the marsh here, and we can layer small washers, and we can get, let's get a little bit of okay, and you can see it's I've re-wetted it, and we've got a little bit of a reflection going, a reflection of the marsh, and then we've of course got a reflection above, and what we've got here on a shoreline is a lot of vegetation, and I am just taking some of the what I've got, and you can see there's actually a little, didn't know I'd be able to do it, but there's a little drainage from our infrastructure flowing into the back bay. And it is really these storm drains that drain all the way down to the back bay. And I'm able to lift it like that, and this is lifting a mixture of the green we created, and this I'm lifting it with a flat number 6 brush. And in fact, there's some reflection going on here. We've got sort of on one part of the back bay here, we've got sort of a beach. Actually, over around the corner here, we've got the Back Bay Aquatic Center. Used to be called the Olympic Aquatic Center because it was created for 1986 Olympics. However, now it's just the Back Bay Aquatic Center, and we get a lot of people, a lot of skulls, and well, I got ants, and it's probably because of the honey in my ink. Let's see if I can get something going here. A little dry. Now we have lifted we just have a lot of nice granulation going on. Well, wondering if I can mix the ochre with a little bit of umber. Maybe a lot of that light ochre, and get a I know when I frame this, and if I frame this, yeah, it's not a foregone conclusion that we are producing real art here. We can come back later and get even more details going here. But for now, I realize I'm not very close to the mic. I suppose I should connect a lapel. I have about a dozen lapel mics. I don't know why. I just keep buying stuff. No, I think we should let that dry and then come back in and put some details. We'll be right back.